Okay, so the devotional for today is really wonderful. So that's what I'm doing, a devotional. Again, based on this book by this author. And we're good friends with her mom. And she rescues dogs and all kinds of dogs. And this one just couldn't have been better. I've been floundering in my ADD recently, and I kind of came upon the thought, like after giving up in despair, God really had to persuade me to be open to receive his goodness. And something in me wanted to hold on to worry and, um, I don't know, just attachment, I guess. And then I was like, why am I holding on to this struggle? Just trust, open, receive, flow. And I really do think that's our primary role as humans, is to receive goodness, divine goodness. And we have two choices. We can be in, talk to you later. We can be in resistance or we can be in receiving mode of that goodness. And it makes all the difference. If I trust and know that God is loving me and taking care of me, then I can rest. And if I feel like it's all up to me and I have to struggle, then there's a lot of fear there and it's misery. So I have found this peaceful place, and then lo and behold, here's my devotional for today. I'm just going to read the whole thing and then do a little bit of exegetical expository on a particular word that Paul uses. And I'm like, I'm going to look that up. What does that mean in the Greek? What does that really mean? And it has to do with our affect. Our affect, what do we focus on? So this is kind of in terms of what do we focus on? Like the outside world or our internal state, our immediate lives, the bigger picture. And the word affect, how it affects your affect, affects you. How does it affect you? Corky and heavenly focus. According to my husband, Corky's mother was a mop and his father was a fuzzball. This small terrier mix from the local animal shelter had a long, silky, soft, straw-colored hair and big brown eyes. He was not particularly bright, but perhaps it was just that he suffered from lack of focus. And here I am floundering in my ADD, and here's this dog, not very bright. For example, when we would toss a treat to Corky, he would inevitably snap at the treat too soon, missing it. And as he looked down to find it, the treat would hit him on the head, which caused him to look up, and the treat would fall off his head to the floor behind him, and the other dog would promptly eat it. This happened over and over for 11 years. It's like, oh my God, that's so me. Oh gosh. When was Corky not bright enough or coordinated enough to learn the task of catching a treat, or was he just not focused on the treat? I never could figure it out, but I do know what his focus was perfect, that it was perfect when it came to me. Corky loved me to hold and pet him. He would snuggle with me on the couch or curl across my shoulders, cat-like, as I read or did housework. If my husband, however, tried to pick him up, this little cuddlebug would snarl and growl until Jim put him down. That is, unless he faced me. If Corky focused on me, Jim could pick him up, pet him, even hold him up in the air with no reaction. However, the minute he faced Jim and lost his focus on me, Corky would snarl and growl. In Matthew, we read of the disciples in a boat battling the waves amid fierce winds on the Sea of Galilee. Suddenly, they spotted someone walking across the foaming sea towards them, and they were afraid. Christ called out, assuring them that it was he. Here's Peter's response. Peter responded and said to him, Lord, if it is you, command me to come to you on the water. And he said, come. And Peter got out of the boat and walked on the water and came toward Jesus. But seeing the wind, he became frightened and began to sink. He cried out, saying, Lord, save me. Immediately Jesus reached out and took hold of him and said to him, you of little faith, why did you doubt? Just as Corky was secure when he focused on me, and Peter walked on the water when he focused on Christ, we can feel secure amid the storms of life when we focus on Christ. One of my favorite hymns beautifully articulates it this way. Turn your eyes upon Jesus, look full in his wonderful face, and the things of earth will grow strangely dim in the light of his glory and grace. That's by Helen Howarth Lemmel. Wonderful hymn. It's one of my favorites. We become stressed, anxious, and fearful when we look at the world around us. But scripture reminds us that this world is not our focus, it is only temporary. We are to focus on the unseen, on the eternal, on Him. And I have to say, I adopted that attitude to the excess as a Christian for years and years, up until about 5 or 6 years ago. I was like, "No, I don't care what happens on the planet," but it's not advocating that we ignore what's going on. It just is encouraging us to not be affected by it, but rather let ourselves be affected, our affect be influenced by our focus on God. And when we focus on the divine love coming towards us and we receive that love, what kind of affect do you give out? So we fix our eyes not on what is seen, but what is unseen, since what is seen is temporary, but what is unseen is eternal. 2 Corinthians 4:18. Set your minds on things that are above, not on things that are on earth. Colossians 3:2. That's what I felt compelled to look up. So I got out this big old fat serious study Bible that I got. This thing is literally like 7 pounds. Good morning. Yeah, it's all a grand illusion. Thank you. And watch the show, enjoy the show, eat popcorn, be entertained. That was the injunction. That was the admonition of the Intel board. It's like what you're watching isn't real. And I just a side note, look up on YouTube the movie Wag the Dog scene. Just put in Wag the Dog scene, that movie from years ago, and it's a 4-minute clip that will blow your mind about how the illusion is generated to influence your affect. There's one reason: controlling how you feel. And we get to choose how we feel. And it is an act of the will. This is an act of the will. Set your mind. And in the Greek, okay, so Colossians. So I looked up, they have the study Bible, so you can look up a particular word. I wanted to look up the word mind. Set your mind, that whole phrase. So I looked it up, and the word phrenology, it's like a study of the skull. It actually has something to do with the diaphragm and the breath, which I find fascinating. But okay, phrenes, translated as thinking, used in connection with Paul's discussion regarding speaking. It was the diaphragm which determined the strength of the breath and hence also the human spirit and its emotions. It precisely refers to the ability not only to think but also to control one's thoughts or one's inner attitude of mind. It is the heart at the seat as the seat of passions, as well as the mind as the seat of mental faculties. Consciousness, it was their word for consciousness. Phronio, to think. So this is the actual word. Set your mind on things above. To think, implying not only thinking, but also the affections. Affect. Affect. How does that affect? And I just started thinking of that word, affect. Of the affections, which is also desire. Affections, will, or moral consideration related to phrenes, which I just read. Most commonly to the actions of the will and affections, translation with an accusatory, to mind, to set the affections prudently, prudence, phronesis, the knowledge of how to regulate one's relationships and dealings with other people. So that's another implication there. So what this verse was saying is that Okay, it has to do with, what you're invested in. So, I was listening to this speech by, Mr. P over, on the other side of the planet explaining why he was doing what he was doing, and I posted it on my FB page, my old page. But you can look up, you know, I'm not gonna say his name, but, that guy over there that's getting a bad rap for what's happening in the country that starts with a U, and it's just his speech. It's like a 55-minute speech, and at 26 minutes, he really begins to explain how it's no longer that country run by itself, it's being run by foreign puppets, which we know. He's just taking it back from the dark puppets from this country primarily is what's happening over there, and it's not the bombs and the violence and the shit. They're just terrified of being exposed, so they're doing a wag the dog to control our affect because the vibration got really, really high with the truckers and the convoys and stuff, and they're like, "Uh-oh, we have to do something to change their affect. If we can get them to set their minds on what we are doing, to set their affections, their attachments, their desires on worldly things, we can watch what's happening, but if we have detachment and we care more about what God is doing and we trust and love, we're in that right relationship of I am loved, it changes everything. Then you have more detached attitude, you can see more clearly, you're not being operated and controlled by this, joystick of the media and and it's where have we set our affections? Where have we set our mind? And we that's a message that we can give to absolutely anyone is, maybe we can't show them the speech to say, here, begin to get a grip on what's going on over there, but maybe we can say to them, what do you really, really care about? What are you invested in? Are you attached? Do you have where are your attachments, your emotional attachments? And where should your attachments be? And naturally they'll say, well, my heart needs to lead the way, and I shouldn't have an excessive attachment to anything for my happiness. The attachment should be plugged into the spigot that is constantly pouring into our lives. We hook up our pipe to a partner, to world events, to I'll be happy if this happens or if this doesn't happen. And when we plug it in to God, it's like how much energy is coming from each one of those sources, how much nurture, how much satisfaction, and how permanent and reliable is that? And when we plug it into the divine, which is right here, and we say, you are my source of happiness. I am in gratitude. What do I have to say? I remember when I was going through my contemplative phase, which is basically my whole life, and I was like in my 20s, and I was like, the only prayer we ever really have to say is thank you. That's really what it comes down to. And then I'm having a normal human life where I'm like, ah! So that's my message for today is just put your focus, set your affections so that your affect is affected by what you know in that you are beloved. How does it change your world when you wake up every morning and you go, okay, listen to this. This is the coolest thing. In the class that I was teaching, I gave an assignment, which is so interesting watching what I'm telling the class and how it's what I'm really telling myself. And I gave an assignment to write a letter of intention to your whatever part of you is wounded and doesn't get that you're loved. Essentially, it comes down to that. Oh, why don't I have a car? Why don't I have a career? Why don't I own my own home? A loving partner. It's because there's a belief in there that you don't deserve it somewhere. It's a wound. It's from your childhood. It's, getting fucked up because you live on earth. And we have the capacity to say to that part of us, I love you. And it's okay. I simply want you to know that it is my intention to hold you with love and compassion rather than frustration and blame and or hiding it or making sure I don't find this wound because its surround is guarded. It's like just open the door gently by whispering to it. It's like you're rolling this little ball of light and it goes in the door. There's a door is cracked open or it goes under the curtain and that little ball of light can sit there with the wounded child or whatever part of you and just say, I love you. I love you. That's all. I just love you. And so I wrote out this letter of intention, and here's what I ended up saying. I don't have it handy, but it was like, Dear precious little wounded part of me, I just want you to know that I want to align with the ascended masters, Jesus, Yogananda, all these that look at me and love me. They adore me. They delight in me. My higher self, I can hear her giggling at me. I have connected to her to the degree where I can see the gestures on her face. I can feel her. She's amused by me primarily, but just loves me. Not worried about anything. I want to align with the family members who have passed over and watch over me, and they love me and they're participating in my growth and undoing the mistakes that they made. I can feel them and hear them. I'm surrounded by a soul group. So, like, there's this whole group that I'm a part of. I don't know, like near death experiencers say, oh, it's like 5 or 6 people. Sometimes it's more, but the really tight soul group, the people that you marry, you give birth to, they're your parents, they're your best friends over and over and over. This soul group is watching you and they're really excited and they absolutely believe in you and they're living the drama too, like a sport, your team. Um, and anybody else you want to imagine, the source of all creation. I am beheld and watched over every minute of every day, and I am so, so precious to them. And they never take their loving gaze off of me for a split second. What if we woke up to that every morning instead of, oh, I'm so fucked up? So that's the challenge for today. Take a look heavenward. Oh, thank you, Legine, for being here so much. It makes a difference because I can feel the benefit that you're getting and the richness of your own wisdom and insight. Your own inner teacher is going off with you. Yeah. Okay. So have a really wonderful day. God bless. Big giant hugs. And I'll see you next time.